This is the Barbados Today evening news for Friday, January 19. Thank you for joining us. I am Mary Claire Williams. The former Barbados ambassador to CARICOM, Robert Bobby Morris, is suggesting that trade union leaders should find alternatives to industrial action as they continue to press for an end to salary negotiations. Morris was commenting on the two-day national shutdown called by the National Union of Public Workers after government missed Monday's deadline to wrap up the talks.
The trade union is an organization that to some extent is led by what the people require, your membership. You should get a mandate from your membership. If the membership say that this is what they want, then the trade union leaders have to negotiate with the membership and say to them, I understand what you want, but I'm not sure what it will do. So there has to be that intercourse between the rank and file and the leadership, always in terms of what is best for the organization. So it's not just an emotional thing about whether you feel something should happen or not, because far more analysis.
Not all members of the NUPW responded to the union's call for a shutdown. Many workers reported for duty today, even as some stayed off the job. In other news this evening, if the Minister of Transport and Works, Michael Lashley, had his way, he would ban tinted vehicles. He believes some crimes are being committed by people using heavily tinted vehicles, and according to him, a ban would be an effective way of addressing the problem.
He believes that we have to look at the law regarding to tint vehicles. I believe that tint vehicles should really be for, this is my personal opinion. This is not the ministry's opinion. But my opinion is that I believe that given the fact that so many criminal offenses are committed by persons who drive into districts with heavily tinted vehicles, and you can't see not even the person's eye or finger, that I think that with the rise in crime and the types of crime, that we have to look again whether we should remove tint altogether or whether tint should only be allowed for certain persons holding particular jobs in Barbados.
Lashley was addressing the launch of Driver's Pledge, a new initiative by Corporators General Insurance to address the large number of road fatalities. And there were just over 8,000 vehicular accidents reported to the police last year. General Manager of Corporators General Insurance, Anton Lovell, says he hopes that this new initiative will help drivers take the necessary precautions on the road.
I can tell you that not all traffic accidents are reported to the police. So you can conservatively add another 1,500 to that total. Of note, in many cases, persons suffer injuries in these accidents. And when we are talking about that, if you add the two together, the 8,000 and the 1,500, we're talking actually on an average about 28 traffic accidents occurring daily on our roads. If that is not unacceptable, I do not know what is.
Traffic towards the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus slowed this afternoon after a ZR caught fire at the bus stop opposite the Errol Barrow Center for Creative Imagination. The incident occurred around 2 o'clock. Eyewitnesses say the van started smoking and subsequently caught fire. Barbados Today understands that the driver and conductor were the only occupants at the time, and they got out of the vehicle when they realized it was on fire. One tender responded to the incident. A St. Thomas man has been remanded to prison after being convicted on firearms charges. 20-year-old Julius Radcliffe Carter of Vaucluse, St. Thomas, pleaded not guilty to unlawful possession of a pipe gun and 3 rounds of ammunition when he appeared in the No. 2 Supreme Court. The jury found him guilty of the charges and his bail was revoked, and he was remanded to prison until March, when the pre-sentencing report is due to be presented.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
Barbados Today, news you can trust.
Thank you for staying with us. We're back now with news from the region. Trinidad and Tobago today elected its first female head of state. Retired Justice Paula May Weeks is the Twin Island Republic's sixth head of state. And both Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley and Opposition Leader Kamla Persad-Bissessar agreed that she was the most suitable person for the post. Justice Weeks is a former Justice of Appeal in Port of Spain, and she held the post for 11 years until her retirement in 2016. And finally, on the international scene, U.S. lawmakers have been meeting in a bid to avert a government shutdown tonight. The Democratic Senate leader, Chuck Schumer, met with President Donald Trump at the White House today to search for ways to prevent the shutdown. But he says there are still disagreements as the clock ticks towards the deadline. We get more in this Reuters report.
Everybody's nervously watching Congress to see if they will approve yet another temporary spending measure before current funding expires on Friday night. That would head off the possibility of a damaging shutdown, but it would only make the underlying problem worse. The federal government's been operating for months now on an outdated budget plan because Congress has failed to pass the detailed spending bills that cover everything from nuclear weapons development to prisons to public housing. Congress is supposed to pass these spending bills before the start of the fiscal year on October 1st, but it rarely does. In the meantime, lawmakers keep the government running by carrying over the prior year's spending plan. But that means the Pentagon doesn't know how much money it has to order up new submarines, the FBI doesn't know whether it can hire new agents, and your local homeless shelter doesn't know how much money it will have to help people off the streets. And the Justice Department can't open that Illinois prison that's ready to accept thousands of maximum security inmates. They're waiting for Congress to sign off on the final $80 million needed to get the place up and running. It also leads to wasteful spending as government agencies can't place bulk orders with contractors. Navy Secretary Richard Spencer says the stopgap spending has cost taxpayers an extra $4 billion over the past few years. Defense Secretary James Mattis weighed in on Friday.
No enemy in the field has done more to harm the readiness of the U.S. military than the combined impact of the Budget Control Act's defense spending cuts, worsened by us operating in 9 of the last 10 years under continuing resolutions, wasting copious amounts of precious taxpayer dollars.
The Pentagon has not been afraid to talk about this issue, but other government agencies have been reluctant to speak up. At this point, they're just hoping that Congress won't shut them down over the weekend.
That's news this evening. Remember, there's more on our website, www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, and like us on Facebook. We're on Izumi Media in bus terminals and Screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also find us on Mix 96.9 FM. I am Marie Claire Williams. Good evening.